Steve Lewis here with Legacy Horn Experience, continuing my conversation with Jeff Scott, Kevin Newton, and David Jolley about chamber music and wind quintet, specifically their experiences. The next topic, this next segment, we're going to talk about some of the interpersonal collaborations and issues that can arise in chamber music. And we'll go around the room. We've touched a little bit on this, but David, can you start us off with what makes a good chamber group, a good, and specifically a good wind quintet group, from a personnel standpoint? I mean, what kind of players are you looking for in the wind quintet setting?
Um, well, I'll try to keep my comments brief because those are just great subjects, one after another, and it's like they're huge, right? But I will really try to be brief. I think part of my experience is having been in Orpheus Chamber Orchestra from the beginning. And from the beginning in Orpheus, people talked a lot. I mean, everybody had an opinion, everybody had something to say. And so rehearsals, of course, were endless and not very productive because everybody did have so much to say, whether they were really thinking or listening or not. You know, they had a lot to say. Now, over the years, people said less and less. And that was really very good. And what I learned in an ensemble, so the way I'm in an ensemble now is I just sort of play the way I'm going to play. And if somebody wants to give me a hard time, okay, you know, they'll speak up and then I'll nod and then I'll still play the way I want to play. But but I don't talk about it. And and I'm trying to keep this brief because you can tell I get excited about this stuff, right? I know we all do, you know, you guys are grinning at me, but the other thing is listening. Like for me, there was a certain point where I realized that it was more interesting to listen to other people than it was to listen to myself. And that's really important because the way I listen to a piece is sort of like what's missing. Okay, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, but what's missing? And then try, if I'm going to make a comment, I'm going to try to speak to what's missing, right? But that's it. I won't go for 3 remarks. I won't go for 7 remarks. People can't absorb it. And that's, you know, so that's what I would say. And I'd be very interested to hear what Jeff says, what Kevin says along those lines. But that's how I would talk about it.
All right, Jeff, you have to follow Mr. Jolley in this. So best of luck, sir.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to stay out of trouble with this one. I got a book to write when this is all said and done. You know? But you know, Imani Winds. It's coming up on 30 years, about 28 years now, and we got together in '97, and somewhere about, I'd say in '04, '05 or so, things really started turning for the ensemble. We had management. We were starting to get a little, you know, higher paying gigs and more frequent and so forth. But you know, there was always a little bit of tension in the ensemble, and I'll say that we would do dozens every year of clinics and workshops and so on. And we'd be asked this very question, you know, in seminars by young folks, you know, how do you deal with interpersonal, da, 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 da. And we would have say all the right things, but then go into rehearsal and just bang heads with each one another, you know, just completely opposite of what we were preaching, you know, outside. And it took one particular member, I won't say who the member was in the ensemble, to kind of just call us to the carpet a little bit. And this one person was not having her, I can say her because it was all four women, having her particular voice equally heard amongst the ensemble. And it was kind of an unspoken thing amongst the ensemble that we give lip service, but yeah, it's not the best idea, or you could feel that sort of in the ensemble. That was happening, and sometimes we'd laugh it off, and sometimes we'd sort of defend that person, and but it was always that you could tell that person wasn't having their opinion being respected. And we all got called out one day on it in a rehearsal, and we realized just how important it was, and how much it was hurting that person. um I can definitively say that the ensemble from that point on torpedo. Not only because that person had their opinion equally, respected, and not because we were then sort of, sparking on all cylinders and everything, but all of that tension went away. We were fighting this tension in the ensemble that we didn't need to have. And I think part of it was that the ensemble kind of lived on it a little bit. We kind of embraced a little bit of that tension. And it was kind of an excuse for not being as good as we could have been. Now, my colleagues will probably say, oh, Jeff, but I think if they really thought honestly, that was really what was going on. And the moment we unleashed ourselves from that sort of tension in the ensemble, the group took off. It literally just took off. And I tell, anytime I'm in some sort of, workshop or masterclass and this comes up, that's what I say. I say it's chamber music is about everyone being able to express themselves equally. And I think we're all gravitated to it because we have something to say musically that might not necessarily be allowed to come through in, say, an orchestral situation or in any sort of large ensemble. You're not allowed to literally say, I would like things to go this way. Or you're playing some sort of way, and someone with a baton says, no, 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 I'd rather you do it some other way. And so we're all gravitated to chamber music because it's this opportunity, but not everyone has a type A personality, And so you have to really allow that space for everyone to at least say what they feel. And boy, I have to say that the group just literally just took off. It just took off.
Wow. Sort of a watershed moment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Evan, how do you tackle some of this stuff, and especially, you're kind of the new guy in Amani Win, so that's got to be a challenge too.
Well, I mean, I have to say that I walked into the first rehearsal and after getting the job, and we're sort of like playing, and somewhere in the first 10 minutes, somebody asked me what I thought. And that was sort of a thing I was not expecting. That totally changed. It was a paradigm shift. I was like, what do I think? Because in my mind, I'm just coming into an established thing. I'm on my P's and Q's. I'm listening. I'm learning. That's it for me. That's what it was. It was learning. But immediately it was like, no, like, what do you think? And the idea of um, having bringing yourself to the situation is a requirement. Um, not a suggestion in the space. You have to bring yourself. You have to bring your thoughts. You have to have something to say. And I think that there's in that way, I already respected everybody, but then I also felt respected. And I think that that sort of culture is built on going through the fire of figuring it out for for so many years and establishing a culture that is built on respect. So I have to say that we operate really with a short memory. So, everybody, we're all passionate and we all have lots of thoughts about everything all the time. And there's all these running conversations that happen. But at the end of the day, when things get heated or when things get intense, um, there's a short memory there because the respect is the foundation for everything. So you can move through something that's difficult. You work through it rather quickly, and then you go eat some food, or you go play the concert, and you keep it moving, and so it doesn't ever need to be anything bigger than whatever the intellectual part of the conversation was. Wait, what is the problem? What is the solution? Great. Let's keep it moving to the next thing, and that's really great. And so from that, when I play in other groups or when I create projects or whatever, I don't play with people that I don't respect. I don't play with people that I don't like.
That's great advice to keep it moving. I mean, I think we've all been in those rehearsals um, where you play 7.5 measures and somebody stops and the yickety yak just lasts for half an hour, and then you're just like, what are we even doing here? So the notion of keeping it moving is yeah, that's great advice to have that mindset. So thank you all so much for discussing these issues with chamber music, and stay tuned for our next segment with these fine gentlemen.